I'm excited to show you the new Laserpod 3.0. And I'm also going to be demoing a full backglass repair using the 3.0. For those of you that haven't gotten into backglass repairs, this will be a good tutorial on how to get started. I hope you enjoy the video.
Don't let them guide your life towards regret.
So right here we've got our Laserpod 3.0, and I need to do a backglass repair. As you can see, we've got an iPhone 11 Pro Max with a fairly shattered back and front. I've got here my 11 Pro Max mold. Go ahead and stick the phone inside there so we protect all of the sensitive bits. Go ahead and set it on in there. Shut the door. On the dial here, let's go up to 15 minutes because I have the time. I could probably run this less than 15 and we'd be fine, but we'll go ahead and use the 15 minutes and start it up that way. Now you'll want to be in a well-ventilated area, as you will still find that there are fumes like any laser machine. Now I'm a big fan of the way that it looks, but the 3rd gen I like, especially because it actually shows you how much time you have left versus the other ones where you kind of just had to wait for the lights to shut off in order for it to be done, which was a good indicator, but this is much better. The tools that I'm going to be using for this repair are pretty straight. Got a flat chisel razor blade, my flexible Conley thin prying tool here. We got a glass breaker. We'll get more into that, and then just a pair of tweezers that I don't care much about. The glass breaker is something you got to be careful with as far as working on the phone, because I've seen people they'll use it on places other than around the camera lenses, and they'll end up ruining the phone. The impact that this can cause, the shock can travel right into the phone and damage the internals, if not completely separate the sandwich boards. So using one of these is something that you got to be careful with, but using it specifically around the camera lenses only, that's what I recommend. You might get away with it with a couple punches here on the edges somewhere, but for the most part this should only be used around the rear camera lenses to help break up that glass that's so hard to get out. By loosening or tightening this section right here, you increase the power of the punch that this has. By loosening it so that it's further away, for example, when it actually goes to hit, the actual punch is going to be a lot softer than if you have it all the way tightened, where it'll smash. And so my recommendation is, and I'll show you this when we go to do it, is to start back almost to where this wants to come all the way off. You know, maybe a turn or two past that, and that's a good starting point because you're still going to get a little punch. You can almost hear it's very minimal, and just increase it by half a turn at a time until you find the sweet spot where it actually wants to punch and break things. Now the Laserpod here, you've got a 20-watt fiber optic laser. It does a really good job at burning the backglass. And lasers do have a lifespan, and this one has a couple thousand cycles in it before you're going to have an issue with the laser dying. Should last you a long time. All right, we are almost done. And we are done. We're gonna go ahead and turn it off. We'll open it up. I recommend cleaning the lens. Cleaning this before running it again. Let's take a look and see what it's done. And that looks great. So now we just need to go through the tedious process of getting the glass off. So I like to start with my trusty pry tool here. We'll find an edge to go in And something you got to be aware of is there is a very small bezel on these curved phones, not on like the 12 and up, but on the 11 series and down. It's a very thin plastic bezel, goes around the border. You want to avoid damaging it. You'll see that wherever there's cracks, the laser might refract just a little bit, and so the shards like to hold on just a teeny tiny bit. You should be able to just push right through and remove. I definitely recommend wearing eye protection. You can even wear some gloves if you really want to. Definitely will keep the black powder from getting all over you.
I feel so useless, I feel diluted, my heart's been wounded. Silhouettes of you are like a taunt. Never really know just what you want. With you I don't ever feel calm.
You'll find the more and more you take off, the easier and easier it becomes.
You don't understand the pain it brings. You don't ever want to give me wings. You don't ever want to set me free.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, baby, you'll get sick of being the monster.
You can definitely see that this is a messy job.
Out of my nightmares, see me right there. But if I lay down and I play
Now this shard in particular is on top of the NFC coil. So I need to be a little bit careful about letting the tip of it dip down inside because I don't want it to damage the coil. But now that I've taken it off, it actually gives me an advantage because now I can get on top of the coil and move around and remove shards of glass. You'll find wherever there wasn't adhesive burn, then you're going to have a spot where it might stick a little bit. Again, I want to work slowly on any shard that's on top of the NFC. Just taking my time. Now there's a silver sticker at the back here. It always gets chewed up because it's extremely thin. So don't worry about that sticker too much. Just don't want to damage the coil below it. And I gently push in, push through, get around here, try to get under, take out a lot of glass at the same time. See, this glass just basically falls out as I touch it. I'm not really having to do much other than just gently coerce it out. The occasional pop. Now I'm just going to push it all the way through so that we can get around this black adhesive on all sides. That way we can make sure the NFC isn't stuck at all to the rest of the backglass as we try to pry it up, because we don't want to pull the NFC through because it only got a very little lip that's behind the frame there of flimsy material that could easily just decide to come up and go with the backglass. Now this screen's already broken, so I don't mind setting it down. Otherwise, if you're ever gonna set it down, you might as well clean the table so that you don't push into the glass there. We'll get our glass breaker out, and we're gonna go around and give it a couple little punches. You see a nice crack there.
Sometimes I feel like all is lost, but I know it's not true. I wanna put up all my walls, cause I'm not in the mood. But then I cut myself off from the rest of the room. I know that I can heal it all if you're patient and soon. It can all be.
You can see I've got a fairly weak setting right now with it. I could up the punch, but I am getting cracks when I use this. So there's no point in rushing it if I'm gonna have to cause a heavier punch. The one that's already going right now seems to be doing just fine. Want to avoid damaging the flash, the microphone, the lenses themselves, the frames to the lenses. Let's see how well that does. First things first, let's break away this here, and you'll notice there's a little rectangle here pinning it down because I don't want that to pull up either. It's somewhat adhered normally to the back glass. And there's another one right here that I need to be aware of. You also don't want it to pull up. We'll go in on top of it. Use a little bit of isopropyl alcohol to try to loosen up whatever grip glass has right there. There we go. Got another up here that we have to deal with as well when we get there.
I had a given art, but now I'm thinking smart. I'm keeping up my guard. I'm hiding every card. I roll a flush of love. You never know what's hard. With a back to the mat, gonna see where I'm at. I'ma fight like I'm mad. I'ma be something that they can never be me. Nice try, but they'll see I achieve everything while they stay salty. I can hear the demons call when they do what they do, and now I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never.
Now I'm gonna hold down the microphone while trying to get this last shard out of here. They don't want to pull the microphone out of its slot and tear the cable there. Alright, and then if the mesh tends to want to come off, so if it does, just grab it and set it aside so that we can install it again when we go to put everything back together.
Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action, and with a little time, just be patient.
And this is what I meant by a pair of kind of throwaway tweezers eventually. They'll start to get beat up, and actually it comes to be a benefit because you can use the thicker tips to really dig in there and the thinner ones to get into the gaps to help kind of pop things out, and eventually the tips will break off just because you're going to be bending them so much. Now if you look really carefully, there are these gaskets that tend to break when you're scraping under there. I have a solution for that. Comment below if you have any tips or tricks for anyone else out there on how they might be able to get the glass out easier from under the lenses. But once you get it going in the middle, it tends to all really go really fast. It's just getting it going. Let's see how it's all finally starting to just fall out. Alright, now it's crucial that you go around and double check, because you can kind of see this purplish blue tint. That's where the laser couldn't hit. And we need to make sure that all of the little shards are off of there, because there's going to be plenty. So I'm going to carefully go around and really just scrape up. You can kind of feel with the end of the tweezer if there's any glass there, and we'll just get those little shards off, so we have nothing that's pushing glass on glass when we got to put the new backglass down. Alright, from here it's pretty straightforward. There's a couple different ways we can go about prepping the surface, but the main goal is to try to get as much of the debris as possible gone. You can do that by just taking a couple minutes to carefully scrape at it. You could run it back through the laser machine if you really wanted to. That just creates more fumes and dust, and will make it so that you'll have to replace the filter inside the Laserpod sooner. So I just take the few minutes to carefully go through and scrape up all of the old adhesive and prep the surface for the new glass. Now I'm not like going crazy at this. I'm not trying to leave scrape marks in the metal. I inevitably will leave marks that there's been a metal tool on the metal, but I'm really just trying to get rid of the majority of the debris here. And you can be as perfectionate as you want, but that right there, this area, that's plenty good for receiving the glass. So that didn't take more than 20 seconds. So this whole process should only take you a few minutes. Just got to be careful of not damaging any of the exposed components. So that's why I like this blade. It's skinny enough to really get in all of the gaps without slicing through anything. Very controlled, very meticulous. Now along the border here, gotta really be careful not to damage the bezel. And you might find little teeny shards of glass. We're really trying to flatten it out. Get down to a really nice, even and smooth surface for the new backglass to stick to. There's a thin row of adhesive that I like to try to remove along the bezel here without damaging it. That'll allow the glass to sit nice and flush down inside the frame.
Never really know just what you want. With you I don't ever feel calm. I can feel the sweat inside my palm. Play with me like cats and a string.
Just like that.
You don't understand the pain it brings. You don't ever want to give me wings. You don't
We're gonna do that all the way around the border, getting a nice clean bezel. You can see that plastic bezel right between the metal. It goes up, over, down, and then it has another smaller lip on the inside that the glass can rest on. Go around the lenses and also remove everything down to bare metal like that. We'll go over it and give it one last kind of cleaning to remove all of the dust and debris, old adhesive. Prep the surface perfectly for a new backglass. Now you can see the surface there's some scrapes, but you can see that I'm not like digging into the metal. I don't like to see the metal all dinged up and scraped and stuff, so the occasional scratch is okay, but gouges and things like that, yeah, you don't ever want to see that. That's just not professional. I'm gonna really go around the border, make sure there's nothing left. I've already gone and checked for any little shards that tend to hang out on the edge. All in all, this one is perfectly ready for a new backglass. All right, we're gonna get our cold press glue. I'm going with the black today, or you could go with a clear. We'll screw on our nozzle there. Got my new backglass here with the large holes to go and fit nicely around the lenses. We also will not want to forget about our microphone mesh as well. So earlier I mentioned about the gaskets, these little thin gaskets that were there with the original glass. It had a smaller hole. So what I want to do is replace them with a little bit of a thicker gasket. You can see the difference there. What we'll do is we'll stretch these around till they snap over, giving us a little rubber seal there to help with some amount of resistance to dust and debris, potentially water. There we go. Now you may notice something interesting. You'll see the little hole there for the mic, and then when we look at the mesh here, there's the little notch in the top left there, but the mic seems to be at the top. So the microphone isn't actually directly aligned with the hole there. Still how you install it, with a notch in the notch. So now we are all ready for glue. We've got the mesh put back for the microphone, got the rubber gasket. Now we just need to put the glue down. So for the glue, what I like to do is I'll start kind of in the camera area and put a liberal amount of glue. And then what I'll do is I'll follow the edge here. Put a nice solid bead of glue down the sides. And then we're gonna do basically what Apple did. Is I'm just gonna get in all of those spaces. And then what Apple basically does is they just snake it around, just getting at a general good cover there. Like that, nothing crazy. Now I'll take our backglass here. We need to make sure we line up the microphone, the flash, the cameras, You need to make sure it goes all the way nice and flush. We push it in. I'm looking for a little bit of squeeze out around the border. That's kind of how I know we've got a good seal. Alright, now I'll get myself a clamp. And we'll compress it down, getting that top area nice and solid. Throw a clamp on the bottom. That should do it for clamps. You don't need to go overboard and clamp every inch down. We'll go around and whatever's exposed, we'll give it a little wipe down, get rid of the adhesive that's squeezed out while it's still kind of wet. It's a little easier to clean. Yeah, now we'll just have to let this cure up. You can see how the glass is nice and with a nice curve to it, nice and flush. This will look brand new. And as a tech tip, if you want to prolong the life of your tips here, get a bag of the glue stopper here. These will work for the metal shafts and also for the these ones, so that the tip doesn't just dry out. So you can reuse it later that day instead of throwing it away every time. As you've just seen, it's a straightforward repair. It's a little messy, time-consuming, but overall it's a repair that can be highly profitable because of the cost of the actual backglass being so low versus the cost of Apple selling someone a new phone or having to simply replace the entire housing and transferring everything over. I think this is definitely the better choice. Let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll see you in the next video.